Meanwhile, today, President-elect Donald Trump is threatening to roll back Cuba's diplomatic ties with the United States. Mr. Trump tweeted today, and I quote, "If Cuba is unwilling to make a better deal for the Cuban people, the Cuban American people, and the U.S. as a whole, I will terminate the deal." End quote. Here to discuss that and so much more from Washington is CBS News analyst Julia Sweig. She's also a senior research fellow at the Lyndon B. Johnson School of Public Affairs and author of the book, Cuba, What Everyone Needs to Know. She's also advised American companies that do business in Cuba. It is fair to say, Julia, you are the one to talk to right now.
And good morning.
Good morning to you. And so a time that so many had wondered if it would ever come has now come to pass. And I wonder quite simply, Julia, what changes now?
Josh, I'll say first of all that Fidel Castro left the political stage in Cuba almost 10 years ago. That is to say, he stopped day-to-day governing. He stopped setting overall policy. He frequently was a blogger. He definitely maintained his presence. But his brother Raul, for some years now, has been running the country. It's been his reform agenda, his opening with the United States, his policy guidance that has led Cuba for really the last several years. So what changes now really is going to be shaped not only by Raul Castro still, by the fact that Raul Castro has said he will step down in the beginning of 2018, but also this new wild card we have in the United States, which is the election of Donald Trump to be president. He takes office, of course, in January, and he will have the potential to shape or reshape the relationship that Obama and Raul Castro reset 2 years ago.
What is the sense, then, of what is to come? We heard Mr. Trump's chief of staff, Reince Priebus, reiterate, saying that these diplomatic ties and the changes that we've seen could be rolled back. Is there a sense of what is to come?
Well, look, I take Priebus's statement and this tweet this morning from Mr. Trump as an opening. It's a very hot rhetorical opening, threatening to take the deal off the table, but he's also saying to the Cuban government, let's talk. Now, he won't be in office in the White House until the end of January, so for now, the relationship is with the Obama White House. They are talking hot and heavy about rolling back diplomatic relations, commercial relations, but today is the day commercial flights start. We have hotels, cruise lines opening in Cuba, American people traveling in massive numbers to the island, Cuban Americans voting with their feet, investing in their families' businesses, traveling there. So I'm not so sure it's so cut and dry that they can unilaterally roll back the executive actions, but I'm not sure that the politics are there for them to do so.
Do the economic incentives outweigh the politics?
Well, look, I think they absolutely could, especially and ironically in the state of Florida, which is benefiting enormously from the opening. The Miami International Airport is launching, I don't know the number, but at least 50 flights a week, if not more. There are airports around the country doing the same. Small businesses, large businesses in Florida are benefiting from the purchases of all these inputs that are going to Cuba in planes, all of the remittance money going there, all the stuff that is going from Florida. That's a boost to the Florida economy. So I think the organic and economic and family ties are quite integrated again more than ever and could trump the politics. But of course, the history of the U.S.-Cuba relationship is that domestic politics can interrupt what would otherwise seem to be like the national interest, the economic incentives for the countries this close together to have more normal economic and diplomatic ties. So we'll have to see.
There have been few figures as polarizing as Fidel Castro. And as we saw the uproar in Little Havana in Miami, really a celebration of Castro's passing. What has been the reaction in Cuba itself?
In Cuba itself, the reaction has ranged, but it's been quite, this is a period of official mourning. there are Cubans of a generation who grew up with Fidel, who are his age or a little bit younger, who identify him closely with the revolution. If they stayed in Cuba and they were the beneficiaries of the socialist revolution, then I'm sure there's a great deal of sadness. But as the generations get younger, the identity between people and Fidel himself begins to fade. And of course, again, there's a generation of people for whom Fidel was not the central figure already, and they're looking to the future. So I think it's a very significant moment historically in Cuba for all Cubans, whether they are pro-Fidel, neutral, or anti. This is a very big deal, and they'll be anticipating change to come, not only under Raul, but beyond.
President Obama's statement addressing Castro's death has drawn a great deal of criticism. Florida Senator Marco Rubio, a child of Cuban immigrants, it need be pointed out, called the president's words pathetic. Obviously, as Donald Trump then looks to forge his own relationship here, but has also made note of the counsel that he has already drawn on with President Obama. How has President Obama's statement impacted the future here?
Look, President Obama's statement and his policies of the last 2 years reflect a decision to stop playing the antagonism game, to stop fueling Cuban nationalism by feeding the island's leadership, Fidel, with an opportunity to blame Cuba's own problems on the United States. And so his statement, I thought, was a very careful and appropriate statement to look to the future, to recognize Fidel's impact, and to look to not inflame this moment. And that, I think, the inflammatory remarks that we're seeing are not helpful. I think we have seen a lot of exaggeration in terms of the Cuban American response. It's been far less intense numerically than in previous times of conflict or tension with Cuba. And, you know, I think Obama's got to lock in his legacy on Cuba, on Iran, on climate change. So I would not be surprised if at all if what he and President-elect Trump are in fact discussing is paths forward that Trump might take, even when he puts his own stamp on the relationship with Cuba.
It certainly seems that Castro's passing, as I heard one analyst today say, it's really been a Rorschach test, and really the wild swing of reactions that we've seen would speak to it. Her book is Cuba, What Everybody Needs to Know. CBS News analyst, your insight very much valued today. Julia Sweig, thank you for it.
Thank you, Josh.